This is a little bonus video. Macy has a problem with separation anxiety. And so in this video, I'm going to show you how you can teach a dog to stay. And I'm going to talk about tips that you can use if you do have a dog with separation anxiety. And I think in her case, she is so cute. Her guardian loves doing everything for her as a way of showing affection. But I think we've basically come up with a petulant dog. And so she's spoiled. She thinks the world revolves around her. You come to me if you want to pet me. I'm not coming to you, and that sort of thing. And that creates some insecurity, and insecure dogs are the ones that typically develop separation anxiety. Yes, you're going to sit down there, huh? Okay, so basically what I'm going to talk about, first of all, the triggers for separation anxiety and where it comes from, and then I'm going to talk about how you can use the stay to help your dog get over separation anxiety. So separation anxiety is essentially a panic attack the dog goes through because it's not practiced at being alone. When we get puppies, often the first time we go to work is the first time in that puppy's life it's ever been completely alone. And to go from 100% access to something to zero is such a long spectrum. It's just too much for a lot of dogs. It's overwhelming for them. And so I think that that's a little bit what's going on with her. I think also her guardian, to be affectionate, does everything for her. So now when her guardian's gone, well, who's here to service me? So I think it's a little bit of that. So now some dogs get separation anxiety. They start seeing it, or we start seeing it manifest before they actually leave. We go through a departure ritual. We sit down over there. We put our shoes on in that chair. We put on a certain work uniform, or we grab our sunglasses, or our purse, or our keys. Keys are usually a big one. The remote control to our garage door, or whatever it is. All these things are the things that we do that dogs identify as like almost a ritual. Every time that they're about to leave and abandon me, the things that they do first are they sit on that chair and they put their shoes on, they put on the special uniform, they grab their keys, they grab the sunglasses, and then they leave me and abandon me. I'm alone. So the dog starts getting worked up as it sees you doing those things. So if you do notice that the dog starts getting worked up every time you pick up your keys or sit in your chair and put your shoes on there, what we want to do is systematically desensitize or deprogram the dog from getting upset at that. So what I would do is if it's the keys, I would walk over where my keys are. There's going to be a table here eventually. We just moved in here. I'm going to go over here, pick up my keys. Dog, here's the keys, and I put the keys down, and then I go sit back down. Oh, he picked up the keys. But he just didn't leave. Maybe the keys don't always mean they're leaving. So the idea is to systematically go through all the triggers or things that are associated with our departure so the dog starts to disassociate those with us actually leaving. Also, when you leave, don't make a big deal of it. Are you going to be okay, Macy? I'm going to go to work. Can you be okay? Can you hang out here all by yourself all day? Dogs sleep about 17 hours a day. So you're at work working hard. She's probably sleeping. So don't feel bad for your dog leaving your dog at home alone. Now, I showed the guardian a Vram pet robot, which she's just fearful of a lot of things, so I don't think that'd be a good idea for her. But if you do have a dog with separation anxiety, exercising them a little bit ahead of time before you leave can help put them in a position to succeed. Some people will have someone come by to walk their dog during the midday or things along those lines. Again, in her case, I think a lot of this is based on petulance, but also not experienced at being alone. So we want to find out what any triggers are and practice them. Now, when we actually start leaving the dog, which I'm going to talk about, I'll do the stay and we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, so that's basically, we want to make sure that we're not doing anything that's contributing to the dog getting worked up when we leave. So no, salutations or whatever you call it when you leave, and no making a big deal of it, and no, and deprogram all the individual items, sounds or triggers that get her worked up. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to teach your dog to stay. Now, I teach to stay in 3 segments. First for duration, up to 5 minutes. Then for distance, that's when I start moving away. And then amongst distractions, where people are walking by or there's wind blowing in the drapes or whatever it is. Most people try to teach this, all 3 of the things at the same time, which makes it 3 times as hard. So for a dog, we think just staying there and not doing anything is easy. It's hard. I smell you have treats. Why are you not giving me the treats? Oh, how about if I shake? Oh, that didn't work. What if I stand up? What didn't work? What if I sit down? They do what I call the floor routine. So just sitting there not doing anything is actually kind of hard. She's doing a good job of it now, but we haven't told her to stay. Now, when I teach to stay, I do it in really cycles. So I call it bookends. I'm going to start the stay, then I'm going to pull my hand back, put on my chest or my arm or my leg or whatever. Then I'm going to count to whatever the interval is. Always count in your head. When you get done, I'm going to deliver the treat, but when I deliver the treat, I'm going to be delivering it, and then at the same time, I'm going to have my hand about a foot in front of her face with that stop sign. So she associates the stop sign means start staying, and then when I get the reward, it's associated with that as well. So when I do it, I'm going to start each stay, and then I'm going to count, and then I'm going to stop each stay, and then I'm going to decide, are we going to do the whole thing over again, or are we done? Now, your dog needs to have a release word. We've already talked about this off camera. Right now, the dog's release word is release. So I'm going to actually toss a treat when we get to the side so the dog can get up to go get that. And that it kind of helps them prompt understand that release means we're done with the stay. Now, she's a little girl, so I'm taking these treats and I'm tearing them in half. Your dog should chew these treats in about 2 to 3 bites maximum. And these are, because she's a big Maltese, but she's still small, I'm cutting them in half. So what I'm going to do is I'm using a leash because she was trying to move away. We do this in puppy class, but you normally would not do with this leash at home unless the dog is automatically moving away. But the leash should not be what keeps your dog. It should be your dog's respect for you as an authority figure. So I have a bunch of treats in this hand, and I'm going to treat from this hand. I'm going to do it opposite. I'm actually a righty. Normally I'd have all the treats in my left hand, but with camera angle, I'm going to do it the different way. So I have the treats here, and I'm going to kind of put it off my side. If you're holding it here, see how she's staring at it? So she's going to be looking at it exclusively. So I'm going to have it here. I'm going to say stay. Pull it back and count 1, 2, stay. And remember, anytime the treat goes in the mouth, she should hear the command word after the treat goes in the mouth. Or anytime I give a command, the treat should go in first, or the pet should happen first, then they hear the command word. Now, I talked a lot there. You don't want to do that. When you're talking about this, and I'm going to do it here, I'm going to do like 4 stays in a row to show you how you should do it in real world practice. But sometimes you might do 4, sometimes you do 6 or 8. Just make sure you're not pushing too far. If the dog gets up and moves away on its own, that's what we call an auto release, and that can't happen. When you're teaching your dog for stay, you have to have 100% success before you move to the next level. Also, when you're doing this, in addition to counting in your head, don't stare at your dog in eye contact the whole time. Look to start off, and then eventually kind of look around and look back. If you keep eye contact the whole time, then when the first time you break eye contact, the dog will auto-release. All right, so I'm going to do 3 stays and then a release. And I have more treats in the hand than I'm planning on doing a stay in case something else happens. I don't want to have to reach, whoops, sorry, sweetheart. I don't want to reach into my pocket. The timing is going to matter. All right, Macy, sit. Now, if the dog is too excited or worked up or whatever, wait. Wait for her to settle down. Sit. There we go. All right. Stay. So it wasn't ready yet, so I'm waiting. This is why I'm using a leash, because she wants to go away. She's afraid of people. I don't think she's afraid of me, but she's so practiced at moving away from people, and that just bumping the chair, you saw that indicates she has cortisol in her blood. And all these things come from a guardian doing everything for her to be nice. It's actually handicapping her. So we really need the dog to start doing things on its own and earning its affection. Macy, stay. 1, 2, stay. Stay to start it. 1, 2, 3. Macy, stay to stop it. And we'll do the third one. Macy, stay. 1, 2, 3. Stay. Release. So you can sometimes do this with 2, 3, 4, 5, however many practices at stay you want to do. But if you're doing 5 consistently, 5 stays, and then you try to go to 6 and she keeps on getting and moving away, then just practice at 5. We don't want her to move away. Also, she can either sit or she can lie down and she can stand. Some dogs prefer doing one of those. If your dog always in the middle of stay starts laying down, then just start in the stay and lay down. The book says the dog just has to stay in the location. For what I do for my dogs, if I put you in a sit stay, I want you to stay in a sit, but all they really technically have to do is stay in the area. The reason we're doing this is we want the dog to practice being alone in an easier capacity. So we're going to keep on practicing this until we get up to the point where we can say stay and wait 5 minutes before we give her the next treat. It's going to how quickly you get there is going to be depend on how often you practice. I would recommend that you practice probably 5 or more times a day, with probably anywhere from 4 to 8 practices per stay. Now, at first, it shouldn't take you longer than 1 minute, 2 minutes. As you start getting to the point where each stay is 1 minute, well, then it's going to take longer and longer. Once we get to the point where we can get to 5 minutes, and 5 times in a row, we can say stay and wait for 5 minutes before you give her the treat, and she stays consistently 5 times in a row, then we can start doing distance. Now for distance, I'm going to get up and move around a little bit if I can get my legs to wake up. Getting old is no fun. All right, so I'm going to do it in paces because you see that made her a little bit nervous. She got up, she's getting ready to move away in case I do something and she doesn't know what I'm going to do. All right, And I'm going to kind of crouch down. Normally I would be standing, but I'm going to crouch down so this video, you can see me and her both in the video. So I'm not going to start practicing distance until I've achieved 5 minutes like I just got to talk about. Please don't do that. It is the most common mistake people do when they try to add too much and the dog starts auto-releasing. So now I'm going to say stay. I'm going to take one step back. I'm going to count to 2, 1, 2. Then I'm going to take one step back and say stay. She is a little bit off put because now I'm moving around. I'm moving too fast because this is an instructional video. Don't do this in real world. Then when I get done, I throw the treat to the side. She has to take at least one step, and I say the word release. So now my genesis point is I take one step back and I count to 2. I'm doubling the length. If I took 2 steps back, I would count to 4. 3 steps back, I would count to 6. This is just my arbitrary starting point. So my dog Quest, my most recent puppy, I had to spend 1 week doing 1 second stays. Every time I tried to go to 2 seconds, he would get up and walk away. And again, you have to have 100% success. That's okay, don't get frustrated. If you start to get frustrated or your dog gets frustrated, stop. The last thing your dogs remember is last time I practiced stay, you were pissed. I don't want to do that again. So you always want to end on a success. And afterwards, you can rub her belly. This is one of the few times I talk to the guardian about not petting her unless she earns it. This is one of those few times you can pet her a little bit after she does a good stay. Then you can give her those belly rubs and whatever you want as a nice reward. So she remembers we did a little work, and then I got this awesome massage afterwards. I loved it. It was my favorite part of the day. So that's what we want. We want to put a positive situation. Once I get to the point where I'm walking away, so at first I take 1 step, pause for 2, come back and give her the treat. Then I try that maybe again 1 or 2 times if she's staying in place. Then I go to 2 steps, and this time I count to 4. But again, you're going to play around with those elements. If I take 2 steps backwards and once I pass 2 of my count, she starts moving away, well then I maybe take 2 steps back and just count to 2. That's okay. You have to go at the dog's pace. Once we get to the point where the dog can stay and we can be up to 15 paces away is usually what I say, but here, well, the bathroom's there. So I would probably actually have her stay. You can do it in different orientations of your place, but you want to get to the point where when you're about 15 feet away, you can move out of her line of sight. So if let's say she's here and you're walking back towards your kitchen, so you're in the doorway, she can see you, then you take 1 step to the left, and now you're out of her line of sight. She can't see you. Then come back after 1 second and go back to her and give her the treat and say stay. Then we back and practice that again. And this time, I would do that a couple times in a row. So I'm only out of her sight for like 1 second at first, because that's pretty hard. And but she knows that there's no exit there. So after she practices that enough, then you go to step out of sight for 2 seconds, then 3 seconds. You want to get to the point where you can eventually put her in a stay, go in your kitchen and sit at your little kitchenette suite table that you're going to have set up eventually, and read a book. And stay there for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and she can't see you. So she's practicing being alone, but the door's here. So she knows you haven't left. She can hear you, she can smell you, but she can't see you. So that is a great way for her to start practicing being alone, because it's an easier version of it, and it helps her be able to practice being calm when she can't see you. And after enough practice, then eventually you can go to, instead of 2 seconds, 3 seconds, like I said, you're going to go up to the point where you get to where you can actually put her in a stay maybe in your bathroom, and you come out here and you're on your bed watching TV for half an hour. So we want to keep on getting to the point where she can stay and she's comfortable, and essentially she's practicing being calm while she can't be with you. So once she gets to the point where she can stay for a good 15 or 20 minutes, and this is going to take some time, so practice this every day, multiple times a day. Eventually, when you get to the point where she can stay for that long, then you can start adding in distractions. So maybe you do stay and you have your windows open, and you do this when a lot of people are walking back and forth. Or maybe you do stay with the door open. So people are walking by and she gets distracted, but she still has to stay amongst distractions. And you want to do that until you're pretty confident about that. And she can stay, distractions, marching band walks by and she still stays and doesn't get up. That's great. So the next stage for separation anxiety, what we want to do is what we've done is we want to start using this, and you can really start using this once you have stay for distance. So you're going to go to the bathroom, stay, go to the bathroom, close the door, come back, release. Stay, go get a drink of water, come back, release. Stay, I'm going to go into the closet and change clothes, and then release. So we want to help her practice staying while you're doing things you're going to do anyways. But don't just have her practice here, have her practice in the bathroom. Stay, and then you come over here and sit on the bed. And so she practices in staying in different parts of your apartment. So once you get to that point, and she's pretty, and she's not whimpering, she's not whining for any of these things. If she's whimpering or whining for any of these things, you need to back up and practice the previous shorter duration or shorter distance until she does that successfully 5 times in a row without protesting, no whining, whimpering, or any of those things. Now, when we actually start leaving, we actually leave with way too long. We leave and then we go to work. We leave and go to dinner. She's like, okay, I'm cool. I can hang out by myself. Okay, it's now 1 minute. I'm starting to feel a little anxious. Now it's 2 minutes. Now it's 3 minutes. So man, when are they coming back? And then the dog starts freaking out and barking. And we're not going to come back for an hour. So that means the dog's going to practice for 57 minutes, freaking out. And then what happens at the end of that? We come home. So my freaking out, it took 57 minutes, but eventually she came back. And that trains the dog to continue acting this way. They're not doing it consciously, but it basically conditions the dog to do it. Now, if you come home and your dog has shredded some things, chewed some things up, or had accidents, it is doing so because it freaked out to the point where it was hysterical. It did not do it on purpose. So punishing a dog who has accidents in your house or destroys things is going to make separation anxiety worse. The guardian here is not the sort of person to do that, but other people do. And I promise you, it is not your dog doing it personal. It's like if your friend was so scared of something, they wet their pants. You probably never make fun of them with it, unless they're a good friend, then you probably really make fun of them. But that's the idea, is we want to understand that she's in a panic. She's not doing this intentionally, chewing up my shoes to try to piss me off or to get even with me for leaving. I promise you that's not the case. So what we want to do is we want to start leaving and having them practice with us leaving. Now you can do this a couple different ways. You can just leave and close the door. Or if you want to use the stay a little bit, what you can do is stay, walk through your door, leave your door open, but step out of sight and just sit right outside the one so that she can't see you. Now the guardian asked me about getting a security camera or that you can talk to your dog. I'm not a big fan of those because dogs don't hear your voice the same way through recording or through an amplified system they do as real world. It doesn't have the same fidelity. But if you have a security camera set up over there, you can watch your dog while you're sitting outside. She can't see you. Did she get up or if she gets up, then that means we need to back up and practice at a shorter interval. Again, success upon success. So eventually, now the first way, what I usually do is I tell people not to tell your dog to stay when you're leaving, because that's going to promote an auto release. We're only using the stay to help your dog practice it in a simulation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get up and I'm going to go out the door, and I'm not going to say goodbye to the dog. I'm going to go out the door, close the door, and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to come right back in. So I'm only out, as long as it takes me to close and open the door. That's as long as I'm gone. So if you have a security camera, you can watch to see what your dog's doing. After a while, your dog's like, okay, that's normal. She leaves and she comes right back. Then eventually she leaves and then she stays for 2 seconds. Then she stays for 3 seconds. So you're going to gradually build up on this to the point where you can be outside your door for like a half an hour or an hour. And if your dog starts crying or whimpering, you're going to hear it. Keep a stopwatch or count in your head. Probably at this point, you're going to keep a stopwatch. So just set your phone to the timer or your stopwatch and then start reading a book or watching a TV on your iPad or whatever it is. And as soon as she starts whimpering, grab it and stop. 23 minutes. So that's her maximum amount. So we need to practice at 22 minutes a couple more times until she's pretty confident at 22 minutes. Then we go to 23 minutes. Then eventually 24 minutes and 25 minutes. So the idea is to progressively have your dog be alone. But if you're doing it this way, well, you can do it a couple ways. Like I said, you can close the door and just keep on coming back and not closing the door. Or you can help your dog. If your dog has problems as soon as you start closing the door, I would put your dog in a stay, walk out, leave the door open, and just be out of the line of sight so your dog practices being out longer and longer. She doesn't like this collar, so she's trying to get herself free. So, but the other way, like I said, is what I'd like you to do is get to the point, once you can have your dog staying away from being able to see you for like 15 or minutes longer is when I want you to start leaving your house. But at first you leave for 1 second only and come back, then 2 seconds, and 3 seconds. Once you can achieve 2 hours, you never have to practice past 2 hours. I'm not saying you have to practice up to 2 hours. Most dogs you don't. But the book says once your dog has made 2 hours, they can stay for 6 hours. Or it doesn't matter after 2 hours once they can achieve that. But what we want your dog to achieve is practicing being inside while it's completely calm while you're not here. And again, it takes time to practice. That combined with all the other things we talked about in the session is going to really set her up for success. All right, let me see if I can get her to come back over here. Macy. Stacy's stubborn, but she knows how to work the system. I don't want to come and get that one. That's too close. Now, if I pull her with me towards the leash, that's something she doesn't like. That's going to make her a little bit fearful or resentful of it. So I'm trying to just offer reinforcers. So that's close enough for her to come. Well, I'm already here, I might get this one. Well, I'm already here, I might get this one. So instead of pulling her here, now I'm holding the leash, I'm not going to let her move away, but I got her to do it on her own. Try to always get the dog to do it on her own. This beautiful, cute, separation anxiety riddled dog is Macy, and these are tips on how you can, some tips to help with separation anxiety, as well as how you can use the stay to help your dog practice being alone.